Lyft is jumping into the food delivery industry, and this is super interesting. Right now, I'm on Restaurant Business Online, and as you can see, Lyft gets into food delivery with assist from Olo. I'm gonna go down here. Lyft, the ride-hailing giant that competes with Uber, said Tuesday it will start using its drivers to deliver restaurant food via a partnership with online ordering provider Olo. This is interesting how they're doing it too. Specifically, Lyft will integrate with Olo's dispatch product, which works like this. When a customer places a delivery order on a restaurant's website or app, dispatch automatically pushes it to the optimal provider based on things like availability, timing, and price. Dispatch also includes DoorDash, Uber Eats, and Grubhub, as well as the restaurant's own drivers, if applicable. Adding Lyft to Dispatch will improve delivery coverage for restaurants that use it. Going down here too, which I think is really unique about the way Lyft is going about this, notably, Lyft won't have a restaurant marketplace or app like its competitors. It will work solely behind the scenes as a last mile provider, collecting a delivery fee from the consumer on each order. I have mixed feelings about this. Now, on a positive end, I think the way that Lyft is going about this is amazing. I think this is very smart from a business perspective, because when you think of Uber, the company, you kind of think of two different companies, so to speak. You think of the ride-sharing portion, as we all know, right? Getting an Uber to go somewhere or being an Uber driver, but then you also think of Uber Eats, the food delivery service, and you can be an Uber Eats driver, you can order Uber Eats, so on and so forth. And there's so much man hours and time and R&D and just so much money that has to be used in order to create not only a ride-sharing company, as we all know, but also a food delivery service company. There's a lot of tricky things. So I think in a positive way, it's great that Lyft is saying, hey, we're not going to make a separate app. We're not going to create another kind of subsidiary company or something along those lines. Instead, we're going to work more behind the scenes, so to speak, which I think is a brilliant move. On the negative side, and this is the only thing that really pops up to me as a negative aspect, how will it work with Lyft drivers? Because, and I've done a video before about Uber versus Uber Eats or rideshare driving versus delivery driving. I've linked this below in the description if you want to watch that video. And summing up one part of it, because there's a lot of tricky aspects to delivery driving versus rideshare driving, one aspect is the overall mindset of, do you like it or not? I personally know people who hate delivery driving and love rideshare driving. And what I wonder is the way Lyft's going to do this, because it would be unbelievably frustrating if you're a Lyft driver and you don't have a control over doing ride sharing or delivery driving, so to speak. That the next Lyft you could get, or the next option to select a Lyft, I guess if I would call it that, is actually going to be an order. That now you have to drive to a restaurant, find parking, go inside, be like, hey, I'm picking up Tom's order for Lyft or whatever. You drive to their house, and then have to find their house, like say if it's an apartment, etc., etc. For me, I don't like delivery driving. I know a lot of people who do. It'd be unbelievably frustrating if you're almost forced, in a sense, to do this food delivery service, especially when you involve the acceptance rate for bonuses. Like say Lyft's saying, hey, and they do this all the time, if you do a certain amount of rides this weekend, we're gonna give you a certain bonus, but you need a 90% acceptance rate or something like that. Well, if this is also included with that acceptance rate, that's gonna be super frustrating when you're like, great, I don't want to do food delivery. I just don't want to do it, because like say if you do a food delivery ride or service or whatever, you drop the food off, your car smells like McDonald's, then you pick someone else up and they get in the car and you're like, whoa, McDonald's, okay, that could potentially hurt your rating. Obviously every situation is different, but it would be kind of annoying to have this super intense food smell and then pick up more passengers. I bet Lyft will probably try to find a way around this, where either A, they say, hey, if you check this checkbox, which I suggest they do, you check this checkbox and that means you're open to doing food deliveries. I think that's a great option. Or two, maybe it pops up on the screen and they say, hey, would you like to do a food delivery? If you cancel this delivery, or let's say you don't want to do it, it is not going to affect your acceptance rate. It's not going to give you, any penalties or anything like that, as if it was a typical Lyft ride. That's the only negative thing, because if let's say you want to do Uber or Uber Eats, they're completely different in a sense. They're both Uber, but they're completely different. However, if you want to do just Lyft, because this is so well integrated with Lyft, which I actually think is a smart move on this part, it could also be a negative thing, whereas a driver, if you're now being forced to do two different things almost at once, if let's say you don't have a choice and you have to accept that food delivery service, this could be unbelievably frustrating. Like I said though, I do think Lyft is probably already thinking of ways to integrate it with the app that doesn't force you to do it. It's more of an optional thing that can pay you a lot more. Maybe they even do it ride by ride, where they say, hey, you can either do a Lyft right now and pick somebody up, or you could do a food delivery. You get to pick at no penalty to you. And I guess another pro on top of all of this is that let's say if you do love delivery driving and you prefer Lyft more than Uber, hey, now you might be able to do delivery driving through Lyft.